Our session's title is Accounting and Auditing Researches. Now we have three speakers, and let me introduce myself a little bit. My name is Can Korkmaz. I'm a finance professor at Mersin University, and I will be serving as your moderator today. Before we get started, I want to take a few minutes of your time to tell the roadmap of our session. As I told you earlier, we have three speakers and we have 90 minutes. Every speaker have 30 minutes to present their paper. At 20 minutes, they will deliver their presentation, and the last 10 minutes, we will take some questions and your comments, and we will reserve some time for discussion. Now, moving along to our session, I would like to welcome the first speaker to deliver the presentation. This presentation will be delivered by Assistant Professor Merve Kılıç, and this paper is conducted by three people, namely Merve Kılıç, Professor Ali Uyar, and Professor Başak Ataman. Merve will be speaking to us on perception and accounting professionals on IFRS for SMEs, evidence from Turkey. All right, Ms. Kılıç, the stage is yours.
In Turkey, nearly 99.9% medium enterprises, and they have made some simplifications. As a result, IFRS for SMEs consists of 230 pages and divided into 35 chapters. Turkey also has adopted IFRS for SMEs in November 2010. We were planning to implement IFRS for SMEs starting from 2013, but recently postponed the application to 2014, and there are we are expecting some further delays in the application date in Turkey. Why we have studied about IFRS for SMEs? Because emerging countries, especially emerging countries, are more willing to adopt IFRS for SMEs with several intentions. For example, improving flow of capital, improving financial reporting system, or improving country image of the countries. Turkey is one of the most important emerging countries. And another thing is accounting professionals. Accounting professionals are one of the most important actors in an effective adoption process for IFRS for SMEs. The problems and obstacles can be overcome by the collaboration of several parties, including accounting professionals. So, their perception, their information level, their awareness have a very important role in an effective adoption process of IFRS for SMEs in our country. Another thing is, the full set IFRS is an early project of ISB, so most of the studies in pre-literature have dealt with the issues regarding full set IFRS. When I have started this study in 2011, there were very few studies about IFRS for SMEs, and after this date, there have been many studies in this period after 2011 to 2014. The preparedness of accounting professionals generally is not investigated as intensively in pre-literature. There are few studies. There are, of course, several studies also in Turkey, but the number of is few compared to full set IFRS. This was a project we have taken support from the university as a project, and we have studied with a research company to make our questionnaires. They determined our sample according to statistics rules and significance levels, and they first determined 450 accounting professionals from the accounting bodies, list of accounting bodies in Turkey. Questionnaires were administered over the telephone, and at the end, 210 accounting professionals participated in our study. The response rate was nearly 46. The telephone surveys were conducted during the months of April, May and June of 2012. There were several research questions in this study. What is the preparedness level of accounting professionals and CPA firms? What is the perception and expectation of accounting professions about the accomplishment of IFRS for SMEs implementation process in Turkey? What are the perceptions of the accounting professionals regarding the advantages, disadvantages, and information, only 1% of them said we know IFRS for SMEs very good, and again only 3% said we don't know anything about IFRS for SMEs. And we have asked their perception about IFRS for SMEs implementation process, and we asked what do you think about the application period? It will be accomplished immediately in 1 or 2 years. Most of them said that this IFRS for SMEs will be implemented, will be accomplished in 1 or 2 years. Most of them said, 40% of them said this, and 33% of them said it will be accomplished in 3 or 4 years, and 3% said it will never be accomplished in Turkey. And we made some statistical analysis and look at the relationship between their information level and perception regarding IFRS for SMEs, and we determined that there is a negative relation as their information level increased regarding IFRS for SMEs, their perception, they become more optimistic about the accomplishment of IFRS for SMEs. And we have asked that what do you think about existing applications in Turkey and IFRS for SMEs? They said that, of course, again, it's a general question. They said that 59 nearly 60% of said that the IFRS for SMEs will be better than our existing applications in Turkey. We asked, what have you done? Did you not do any preparation regarding to IFRS for SMEs? 96% of them said, yes, we made some preparation about IFRS for SMEs, but most of them get trainings as a preparation. We can see 67% of get some trainings about IFRS for SMEs. And then we look at the effect of experience and the effect of their education level on their preparedness. We see that education level do not affect significantly their preparation level, but as their experience increases, their preparedness level and their training level increases regarding IFRS for SMEs. And we asked some questions about their CPA firms. 19% of them arranged meetings in their CPA firms. 9% of them informed their clients. 8% of them sold new accounting program compatible with the IFRS for SMEs, and only 3% of them have adopted a program compatible with IFRS for SMEs. And we determined their perception regarding advantages of IFRS for SMEs. We determined those statements by looking through literature, and we see that the high level of perceived high level of advantage is the adopting the IFRS for SMEs will improve the efficiency and effectiveness of financial reporting in our country, in our company. And the IFRS for SMEs will increase, they believe that the IFRS for SMEs will increase reliability, transparency, and comparability of their financial statements. And we look at if experience, preparedness, or their education level affects their perception regarding IFRS for SMEs, and determine that as their preparedness level increases, their perception about advantages of the IFRS for SMEs also increase, but their experience and education level do not affect significantly their perception about in their company, lack of a clear SME definition, existence of an underground economy in Turkey are seen main problems according to their supplementary comments. We determine their perception. They said that the adoption will take a long time in our country. The IFRS for SMEs will be troublesome. They are saying generally negative things about application process in their supplementary comments. And we have also determined their suggestions. They said that related parties should take necessary trainings as soon as possible. The adoption, some of them, 8 of them said that the adoption of IFRS for SMEs should be postponed. The underground economy should be inhibited, and there are several suggestions according to our conclusions. We can say that this exploratory research, extensive literature on IFRS for SMEs by analyzing the awareness, information level, preparedness and perception of accounting professionals, and according to our results, they have a moderate level of information and generally expect that IFRS for SMEs will be accomplished in 1 or 2 years in Turkey. And we have determined that experienced accounting professionals expect sooner accomplishment of IFRS for SMEs. And they expect comparable, reliable, transparent and understandable financial statements according to their perception about IFRS for SMEs. On the other hand, lack of training and costs are seen as the main obstacles to the implementation process. Of course, there can be several implications. For example, national and international standard authorities make several plans to promote the adoption of IFRS for SMEs. They can take into consideration such studies, the results of such studies. And although the European Union has not still introduced IFRS for SMEs as mandatory yet, but Turkey has adopted it with intentions of high quality, but still not applied it. So we are saying that, we can say that regulatory bodies should be decisive about the application. There is still a significant percentage of accounting professionals who have not acquired necessary trainings yet, and inadequacy of training is still is one of the most important problems in the application process. So all of the accounting professionals should take comprehensive training as soon as possible. And although we know that the adoption, the cost of adoption will be in the short run. So implementation costs seen as perceived as main obstacles to the implementation process, and we should maybe highlight that those costs will be in the short run, but in the long run, maybe benefits of the applying this standard set will exceed its costs. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Merve Kılıç. Now we can take some questions or comments. Yes, please.
First of all, it was very good presentation. Good job, very well designed research. So my compliments on it. A few questions on your selection of the sample. When you say accounting professionals, what exactly are you referring? Are they those working for accounting firms?
Yes. We have studied with a research company because we take a support from the university, a professional company. They have several lists in Istanbul, professional bodies. They take the list from there, and they are determining. They have some several statistics professional company it are for us.
So those people are all over Turkey. It's not
Yeah.
in certain area.
A certain area, Islam.
Istanbul.
Islam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Yes, please.
Thank you.
Can you speak without
I can hear you.
Thank you for a very clear presentation,
Thank you.
very well organized research.
Thank you.
I wondered if you have any sense of the Turkish SME situation compared to other emerging or developing economies.
Yes, there are some studies, for example, in Italy, in UK, in Romania, for example, there are many studies. I have looked at that. They generally, of course, we are an emerging country. For example, we can compare with Romania or in other countries. We have a good, in fact, we have a good accounting system in Turkey, but with the European Union or for a globalization or globalized world, we should apply IFRS policies. When we look at, there are some problems in their accounting system, some problems in the mindset, because IFRS or IFRS for SMEs are really different from our existing applications. And the problem may be not about SMEs, about accounting mindset of accounting professionals. If they can solve their problems, they can understand. I think IFRS for SMEs will be used effectively in Turkey, I hope.
May I? One more?
Yes, of course.
SMEs are quite different to public companies in at least one respect. The one I have in mind is that they are very close to what you call the underground economy,
Yes. Family companies.
family companies. So
They don't want to be transparent. They don't want to show their
Exactly.
accounts. They don't want to share information. For example, there was a part in my PhD thesis. I want to look at their financial ratios on their preparedness firstly, but I couldn't get their financial information or financial ratios. They don't give their sales, number of sales, number of assets, or another thing, their return on asset. I couldn't measure any of these things, so I couldn't analyze their the effect of financial position on their preparedness. First, I want to do this, but you're right, they are so close. They don't want to share their information. They don't want to share any. They don't want to give any information about their financial statement. It's so difficult to get a financial data and to make analysis about their statements in Turkey and maybe in other developing countries. I don't know how is it in UK.
So there is an implication that what they report is not reliable.
Yes.
How can you assess the liability of the
I didn't measure their reliability. I only measure their perception about reliability. Yes, they think our financial statements will be more reliable after the application period. They believe this, but I don't know they will do it or not.
That's the next.
I'm not sure. Yes.
Thank you.
We can measure it maybe after the application period, but I don't know we can get the financial data after the application period or another.
That will be an interesting study.
Yes.
Okay, you can take one more question. One question. Thank you very much, Merve. Now, I would like to welcome the second speaker to deliver the presentation, Assistant Professor Yemeği, who will be speaking to us on monitoring ability and diversification. He is from Siena College, New York. Okay, Mr. Gill, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Professor. First of all, good morning. Thank you for being here. Before I start, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the organizers, all the committees, all the sponsors that they did a wonderful job. It's great to be here. Today, usually I do not experience jet lag, but please bear with me if I have some trouble. Still my body thinks that it's 3 a.m. after midnight, so if I make a mistake, please excuse my mistakes. What I'm presenting today, this study specifically is a finance study, first of all. It's specifically focusing on banks, as the setting is Japan, Japanese banking industry. So the old story between should we diversify or should we focus, that's the main target of this study. My name is Yemeği, as Professor introduced me. I'm from Sierra College, from New York. So this diversification and focus, in a nutshell, I think these two quotes summarize that perfectly. If you have read Cervantes, Don Quixote, or in Turkish we say Don Quixote, it says that it's the power of a wise man not to venture all of his eggs in one basket. So does it worth the risk? Why put all your eggs in one basket? What would happen to that? If you lose that basket, you will lose all your assets. It doesn't matter if it's the loans, it doesn't matter if it's the eggs, that's your value. Mark Twain, later from Cervantes, he also mentioned in the same regards, but from an opposite view, which says that put all your eggs in one basket, but watch that basket. So take care of that basket. You put everything in that basket, you may do it, but you have to monitor, you have to focus if it's still safe and sound. So these two sides, the first Cervantes quote is summarizing the definition of diversification. Should we diversify our business in different segments, or should we focus and do what we know the best, what we are the experts? It may be one industry, maybe one type of business, but let's do what we know best. So these two quotes, based on these two diversification focus discussion, it's been an ongoing discussion. I'll be focusing on the banking industry part as of today. So what I'm bringing here is, previously the quantity of diversification has been studied, but the quality of those eggs. Yes, we may have eggs in that basket, but are those good eggs, or are they rotten eggs that we're spending our time unnecessary to protect them? So in this study, I will try to bring that side, which eggs are good eggs or not, has not been studied. In order to motivate this study, the main motivation is in the framework of modern portfolio management, there are three-layer top-down processes. So you first allocate the assets, and under that you focus on different industries, allocate your investments in different industries, and then you go and select some stocks and specify those stocks for your investment goals. So from a bank's perspective, this works. Any successful bank who has that strategy, they have to implement, they have to find an optimum level of diversifying their assets, which industries they need to specify, and how they select their borrowers or loans. So these are three, if we convert that portfolio management perspective from bank's perspective, that's the reality, that's the goal that they want to achieve. Please keep in mind here that banks are not like regular corporations. It's just, by definition, they have to be diversified. Because there are lots of regulations. They cannot tie all their assets in one class. So they have to obey some restrictions. But beyond that, they have some flexibility. to pick, for example, to focus on a specific industry, maybe lending to IT industry or manufacturing industries. So they have some selection flexibility. And as for the borrowers, as you all know, even as an individual, when we apply for a loan, we have to get that credit check from our banks, and they look and check if we are credible, if they want to do business with us or not. It's the same thing with the companies, same thing with the firms. Just to briefly go over what existing studies does. So in general, this diversification-focused discussion has been, there are very insightful research, but the main, although there are some contradictory results exist, which says diversification is better, and some say that focus is better. The general tendency, which also we here in this study, I also find that focus is associated with higher performance. So if you focus, if you do your business in the areas that you like, you may have better performance in terms of returns. So mainly linear relationships are examined, very limited loan industry analysis and no borrower level analysis. And the core thing is banks do not like to share their information, their customer information, because they want to keep it, they want to do business with those individuals or corporations later on for themselves. So they keep it confidential. No monetary perspective, so we look at, there are studies, plenty of studies, if banks diversify or focus, which one works better. But once the loan relationship is established, there is a lack of research afterwards. What happens after that? So banks do not, once they make the deal, they do not close the files and put it on the shelf. What they do is they follow their customers, if they are doing good or not. How about their financial information, any problems, so they follow those information. So based on these are the motivation. The research question that I have is what is the impact of bank diversification on bank performance in the presence of monetary reality? So is there a difference between good monitoring banks or lenders and poor monitoring banks? So just to, I will go forward with the details of the research, but just to briefly give the results at the beginning so you may better follow the work later on. Simply the results are as focus is associated with higher bank returns, which is consistent with the literature. So if you focus, you may have better performance. It's again similar for asset, industry, and borrower levels. So at each level, focus is associated with higher returns. For good monitors, based on my results, diversification is more beneficial. But if you're a poor monitor, focus is more beneficial for these lenders. And please keep in mind that the insiders, if we are the managers of the bank, we know our abilities. We have all the information about our company, about our performance, about our future plans. So what happens is, if I know, let's say that if we are the managers of a certain bank, if we know that our monetary ability is not that good, maybe it's beneficial to focus in some certain industries or some certain type of borrowers at different risk levels. So these are the basic results of this study. But let me go with literature review. In terms of time, let me briefly summarize this. If you have questions in detail later on, we can talk. Diversification studies, as I say, there are some studies they say that focus is better, some studies they say that diversification is better. Usually the theoretical logic behind that is, if you diversify, you minimize your risks. In financial intermediaries theories, what happens is banks, because of their nature, they need to diversify, so they can collect customer information. With that information, they can utilize that information, so benefit more from those areas. But corporate theory, corporate finance theory, it's also said that do what you know the best. So that way you can minimize the probability of loss. so you can reach out better returns. Why? Because you minimize the agency problems, you maximize the utilization of managerial expertise. So you have some managers who are expert in, let's say, pharmaceutical industry lending, so why not use their experience? So in banking industry, again, banks, financial intermediaries, they also provide a service with delegated monitoring argument, so they collect information. How to use that information is critical here. Is there, can we make economies of scale in reality? So we have some information, we have some lending relationship. Can we use that information and do some insurance business with this same corporation or individuals? So these are the main lines of two different theoretical views. Just briefly talking about Japanese banking, we have our dear professor, Dr. Dinai. Maybe he will tell more about Japanese banking industry. But briefly, Japan is, for a long time, it's the second largest economy around the world after the United States. Recently, a couple of years ago, China surpassed Japan in that regards. But still, it has a highly efficient, very successful financial companies, different financial instruments, products, so they are pretty strong in that area. Business groups like in Turkey, in Japan, they also exist. They are important for business. They have their own banks, which is called main banks in scale and use. So Japanese market is a good experimental setting in terms of this research. My data is from between 1989 to 2002 from Japan, as I said. It's after cleaning for the data, for the missing variables and everything, it's 1974 banking observations of 95 different banks. So their borrowing lending data is coming from Nihon Kensai Shimbun, and I collected bank financial statements from Banksco, borrower financial statements and industry information from Global Computer, and daily trading, stock trading information, returns and indices from DataStream. So measures, to speed up a little bit, measures, I use three major measures. Again, asset diversification, industry diversification, and borrower diversification. How I calculate this, I use Hirschman-Herfindahl indices. The way it's calculated is I follow Acharya et al. 2006 Journal of Business paper on calculation of these. So it's simply the proportional amount of assets which is divided between different groups are calculated, squared, and sum them up, and I have a value which is asset HHI as a diversification focused measure, which ranges between 0 to 1. So closer numbers to 1 means more focused lender. Closer numbers to 0 means more diversified lenders. So in a similar case for industry lending, I also calculate different industries looking at SIC codes based on one-digit SIC codes. So top 5 industries, I group them separately, and the others, the remaining, group it as the 6th industry. Again, apply the same Hirschman-Herfindahl HHI method and calculate the proportion for each of these. Which industries? So how diversified or focused a certain lender in each industry? So in the overall industry lending. Similar case for borrower riskiness. So what I did is I used the market model and run data returns, market returns regressed on that, and calculate the beta coefficients from it, and then group them under 10 deciles, which means, what is the strategy of the bank to lend high risk and low risk borrowers? So is it diversified or is it focused? That's calculated in borrower HHIs. Monitoring measures, I use 3 measures here. Lowest 25% of lenders based on Simply, it's logical. Lower lenders with the lowest problematic loans are considered better monitors. Also, top 25% of lenders based on size. So large banks, they have more resources, more human capital, more technological abilities. They have more branches, so they can follow up different borrowers. So largest lenders are grouped as the better monitors. And again, 25% based on the market share. If there's a certain bank who is lending with a higher market share, they have more expertise. So they know the market better, borrowers better. So they may have some advantage. They may consider as better monitors. The models that I use, you may see here, HHIs. Risk, you have to bring risk for this type of research because risk and return, as we all know, they have to go side by side. We have to consider that. I also check for the nonlinear relationship, and I use control variables following the literature here. There are some heterogeneity concerns which may occur, although I use some lag variables in my original model, 1 year lags with HHIs. Take care of some heterogeneity concerns. I specifically target for, I address them more directly by using seeming unrelated regression models later on. So this is my descriptive statistics. Just to summarize a couple of important points. It's consistent with the previous studies. If you look at the return on assets, the mean values, and loan loss provision, also the mean values, it's normal for Japanese, it's a characteristic of Japanese banking. The tendency is taking lower risks, so they don't like to take a lot of risk, and their returns are not that high. The correlations here, I highlighted 3 of these. I use an arbitrary cutoff point, 50%, just to focus more on some high correlations. Here, total assets are associated negatively and highly significant with higher values. Simply, it's intuitive because if you're a larger bank, the tendency is you will diversify more compared to others. And also borrower HHI, which is borrower diversification focus numbers, is also highly significant with industry diversification, which also makes sense. In high-risk industries, the borrower's risk level is also high. So since I'm not using each of them in the same model, they do not interfere my results. If you please, let me first summarize this table for you. The dependent variable is return on assets. There are 5 different models run separately. There are lots of control variables. Here the effects are controlled also. They are not recorded here in terms of better presentation. So I just copied the most important parts. If you please focus on the top row that is highlighted, which is the asset diversification, you will see that all the numbers are highly significant and they have the positive sign, which means positive sign means focus is better in terms of returns. If we see a negative sign back there, it means that diversification is more beneficial in terms of returns. For monetary ability, we also see positive relationship, highly significant here. So if you are a good monitor, your performance is expected to increase. But the interaction term between monetary ability and diversification, we see a negative relationship back there, so which suggests that it may be a different story. Depending on your monitoring ability, your diversification or focus strategies may also significantly change. So here, the result is, we said that focus is more beneficial for asset level, industry level, similar results. Again, the positive relationship and the negative relationship with the interaction term. Similar case with the borrower level, borrower loan level diversification. Here, the only thing is the interaction term is not significant, but still the sign is negative with which supports our decisions. To go more in detail, what I did is I subgrouped different monitoring ability levels based on 25% quartiles, based on asset size. I also use market share and loan loss provision as other subgroups. And the results show that if you look from the last, if there is a poor ability, if a bank has a poor monitoring ability on the right corner with the fourth column, you will see that focus is beneficial for this bank in terms of the performance. But the more you come to the left side, as you see, by the increasing monitoring ability, we see that the story is changing because now the sign is negative. So for good monitors, diversification is more beneficial in terms of their results. So as I suggested before, as I mentioned before, the summary of the results, focus is associated with higher bank returns at each level, asset, industry, and borrower levels. And for good monitors, diversification is more beneficial, and for poor monitors, focus is more beneficial. This study has not just for academicians, but it has also some implications for practitioners, regulators, because these results suggest that if we are a bank, let's say that we are the managers of this bank, and we get together, we can make adjustments based on our diversification focus strategies and create an impact on our returns because we know our monitoring ability. If we are good monitors, we will adjust for it. If we are poor monitors, maybe it's more beneficial for us to focus in some certain industries, some certain risk groups. I hope I am not over my time. Thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Thank you, Dr. Kudret, for the informative and interesting presentation. Now we can take questions. Yes, please.
Thank you very much for your interesting, very informative research presentation. My name is Yoshi Jinai from Tokyo University from Japan. I'm very interested in your usage of good monitors and poor monitors, and especially monitoring ability. So could I ask you now, what elements of a bank determine its monitoring ability? What makes the monitoring ability good or bad and poor?
So I have used some measures. The measures that I use is based on their asset size. If, for example, it's a large bank, what happens is they have more resources, more human capital. They can pay higher salaries, they can hire the most talented people, or they can keep their people that they give their, let's say, organizational culture. So they may have more branches, they may order the most updated technological software to follow their borrowers. So it creates some advantage. Here, monitoring ability, the relationship, first of all, let me mention that. So actually, in banking, we have two separate parts. It's the agreement time. Let's say we make a loan agreement between you and me. What happens is before, as a bank, I go and check your background, I check your debt, I check your financial statements, collect information. Based on that, I decided to lend you money. Once we make the deal, now you receive the money and we have a loan relationship, then it's a different story. Now it's not screening part, it's ex-post relationship. Now I have to monitor. Every 3 months you have to send me your, let's say, quarterly financial statements. So I will follow if you're still doing good as we did before. So in terms of this, you need more resources, you need more people, more talent in that case. So I come up with some proxies for monitoring ability. Also with market share, if I'm lending more in a specific industry or different industries, I also learn during the process. So with each experience, each mistake that I make, like individuals, we learn from our mistakes, banks learn from their mistakes. I should not lend this type of risky customers, or maybe I should not lend these type of risky customers at these certain macroeconomic situations. So they make those decisions. The other one is, I think it's the most representative one, loan loss provision. So loan loss provision, banks, they have to reserve some funds because of their problematic loans. So if I expect, because I follow my borrowers, I have to reserve some money someplace, I have to legally create those regulatory funds in my records in case of trouble. If I'm expecting trouble, I will have those. If banks who has higher loan loss provision, separations or groupings, consider they will have more problematic loans. Maybe not immediately that term, but the following fiscal year, they may experience some losses. So monitoring ability, the ones that I use is based on these. All of them are ex post, and they focus on mainly based on resources, experience, and their current portfolios for loan loss provisions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. Giuseppe Galassi, University of Parma, Italy. Doubtless, diversification and monitoring, the monitoring process, a big impact on the bank performance, doubtless. Okay? But on the asset side, the question is about the investment. Some area inside the total assets, not so much investment in public bonds or liquidity and reserve and so on and so forth. But on the borrowers, lending process, which are the criteria of these enterprises in allocating the money among different enterprises, different sectors, different industries, which are the main driver, just provide the choice of investment. Because this is the premise of the performance of the bond, monitoring, and so on and so forth.
So your question is?
The criteria, just to choose among different sectors, just to lend the capital and the money. Different industries, different sectors, different territories, and so on and so forth. So just to operate the diversification inside the law process.
So, if I'm understanding, as you rightfully summarized, usually what happens is the lender process, they have to keep, let's say, some total loans, some non-lending, non-operating assets. So they group different assets. Within those, once they are lending, what they do is they may focus. Some of these banks in Japan, they are city banks. Some of these banks are more like main banks of the keiretsus, business groups. So they may have some preference. They may know IT industry or manufacturing industry or maybe agricultural industry better than anyone else. So they have some flexibility to specifically lend in those industries. Beyond that, what they do is, within those industries, they can prefer, let's say, high-risk borrowers, low-risk borrowers, but in general, the most logical one is they try to diversify again. Some good borrowers, which you won't be able to charge high interest rates, but some risky borrowers also, if they pay, on the overall, you can charge them higher interest rates. So they have a lot of flexibility picking up their borrowers and deciding specifically on the loans. And this is not just one-time relationship. please keep in mind, it's a long-term relationship. I may have some lending relationship 5 years ago with that specific corporation, but maybe the story changed. Right now, they are way riskier than before, or maybe they are way better than before. So it affects my interest rates, it affects my lending decisions in general. So I don't know if it's targeting your question, but they don't, banks, lenders, they do not have a lot of flexibility at the asset level. So what we see is they have to keep some certain assets. It's highly regulated, but industry and borrower level lending, they have a lot of flexibility.
Yes, just one more question. Which is the impact of the profitability, the income capability of enterprises in allocating in financing those enterprises? This indicator, the profitability, the income figures of those enterprises.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a big impact just on the lending process or other indicators? You choose other indicators different from income profitability, for instance.
So what I use here in this study is the return on assets. I look at performance, but I also consider the risk. I specifically focus on that. And income diversification I do not look at in this study. What I look at is asset, industry, and borrower level. The impact of all of those, which is consistent with the literature, is focus is more beneficial in terms of performance, considering the risk. So if you focus your lending, your asset management, a bank who focuses their lending and asset management compared to a bank diversify its lending. Of course, this is relative value. Again, all of the banks, they have to diversify. There is a difference. Our results suggest that what happens here with focus is associated with better performance. But what this study tried to highlight is the story may be different if we consider the monitoring ability. If we bring the monitoring ability in the bigger picture, the results may change. And what I previously showed is just showing that if you're a good monitor, you have better abilities. So why not take the advantage of that? Lend more, you can diversify. You have more resources, you are taking lower risks, you can still boost up your performance. But if you are a poor monitor, what happens is, it's suggesting just focus, because you're better off if you focus your lending. Because if you, let's say, traditionally, maybe historically, your expertise is lending in, let's say, pharmaceutical industries or agricultural industries. If you decided to go with aerospace, you don't know that industry. You don't have people who knows a lot of that industry. So we see that difference. The impact specifically for performance is focus is more beneficial for performance.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Professor.
I can take, okay, one more question maybe.
We may talk later on. If you have any questions, please. Let me know.
First of all, thank you for an insightful presentation on Japanese banking. I have a few comments and question, actually, combination. You started with Berger and Rifek, 95, which is on diversification. Diversification is actually destroying the value. But his point is a little bit different than yours, in the sense that he really talks about the conglomerates. So a totally different line of business. When you think of banking, I was hoping that you're going to go into different segments of these banks. Like a bank would have an investment banking arm, would have the wealth management, and perhaps retail banking, and that will be a different kind of diversification within the bank with different line of business. Have you considered perhaps testing the diversification within this line of business? It looks like you jumped one step into the loan composition and to see whether I lend money to X company or Y company in a different industry makes any difference in terms of my performance. So I don't know the detail of your sample, but can you a little bit elaborate on it?
Sure.
and to see why you skipped that step.
It's unfortunately we have to skip because of the data. So the way I calculated, the way I created the data is based on individual borrowing information. I had these very nasty Excel files for each borrower. Some of them are large businesses, but some of them are very small, mid-sized businesses. So by combining all of those loan information based on borrowers, let's say certain company A borrowed some money from, let's say, from bank A, bank B, bank C. So I had those information. What I did is I combined all these information and created the portfolios of each bank. So the data limitations, unfortunately, they do not provide if it's retail, if it's corporate, mid-size. It will be really interesting, as you suggested. I wish we had that detailed information, but at this stage, I don't have that information, and it's hard to get that information. As I mentioned at the beginning, banks do not share these information. It's harder to find these information. So the data set enforces a little bit, and but I see your point. I very much appreciate. Maybe in the future, if you can find the detailed data, that would be great to work on that.
Yes, it was also interesting to see that you get the same results. Focus is better.
Focus is
That's
better.
right, yes.
Your first point, I forgot to mention that Berger and OFAC, that paper is not in banking industry. As you say, it's conglomerates, it's large firms, but that's one of the major diversification studies which comprehensively show that focus is better. But Kampakedia, Villalonga, those two papers, they show the opposite. So they say that there are some also highly respected studies. They show that diversification is better. Some of them, they mention that there are data problems, which emphasizes the focus problem, focus results, focus is better. In some specific industries, like for example banking, it's more detailed, like the second part here, Acharya et al., Stroh, Rumble, Bayali, they find also similar, like diversification is better for banks. Now this is a specified industry, it's a different story. It's not like Berger and OFAC said. So there are some more detailed studies.
Finally, very quickly, in your sample, did you have any specialized bank lending in a certain area like real estate or perhaps some segment of the manufacturing companies?
No, unfortunately, as I said, the data is each borrower, we collect some information about borrowers we can find, but not all of these borrowers are listed companies, or even for listed companies, it's harder to find those type of, let's say, asset or financial statements data. I only had is the initial data, their borrowing information, this much money from this bank, but there wasn't any more detail, unfortunately.
Thank you.
The last question is yours. Please make your answer in English.
My question is a very short one. Your data set covers only from 1989 to 2002, but we are living in 2014. Why is such an old data set? I'm intending to refresh your data set and to re-study again this topic.
I would love to. That's actually reaching this data. This is a very unique data set. It was early data even when I started working on this. This is a side work for my dissertation. I wish we had that data. I plan to get that data in the future. Again, that company still provides that, but it requires more funds to purchase that data set, or maybe in the future I may have that chance. But these are highly confidential data that banks usually do not like to share. But if an opportunity exists, definitely. All the setting is there. If there's new data, we can do that. The only good thing about Japanese ranking. This is an old data set, but the practice of banks, as we know also from Turkey, yes, we learned some lessons, but the practice, lending practices, they do not change. So usually long-term relationships, I would expect similar results even with more current data set.
If things didn't have changed so much, it wouldn't matter this much. But you know, we lived the economic crisis since 2007. We are still living, and we don't know when it will end and recover. But this might make some change.
You're definitely right. Also, one other specific thing about Japanese banking is they had this loss decay. They had been, it's not an issue that they're experiencing from 2007, 2008. They have been experiencing trouble since from 90s. So they are still trying to recover. There are some signs once in a while, but they have been experiencing that trouble for longer period, like the crisis environment, more than the rest of the world. Thank you.
Thank you again. Now, I would like to invite the last speaker to deliver the presentation. Now we have PhD candidate Muhammad Reza Nourizi, who will be speaking to us on inner characteristics of accountants and corporate social responsibility, the effects of accountants' integrity, responsibility, compassion, and forgiveness on CSR in Iranian private sector in east and west of Azerbaijan and Iran. Okay, Mr. Muhammad Reza, the stage is yours.
Okay, thanks from the chair for giving this time for being at the stage. Good morning to everybody. I'm appreciating the chair of the conference and organizing scientific committee of the conference. This paper that I want to speak about is jointed with my advisor, supervisors, and me saying at your service about the inner characteristics of accounting. It is kind of interdisciplinary research study about the psychological issue and corporate social responsibility. That is my own PhD dissertation that it is still going to be finished. There are some interdisciplinary researchers about the corporate social responsibility and psychological issues. I have selected inner characteristics of accountants that can be called moral intelligence. We have lots of intelligences, moral intelligences, multiple intelligences from Gardner, and artistic intelligences, and lots of intelligences. But we are focusing on moral intelligence that has 4 characteristics. We have studied these characteristics with the CSR among the accountants in east and west of Azerbaijan and Iran. Azerbaijan and Iran has 2 parts, east and west. We have selected the accountants from these parts, about 280 for accountants from male and females. Okay, it was a small summary of our presentation. Because of the shortage of time, I had to make it very shorter. And also I am studying in Kervansaray University. It is among the third best state university in Iran, located in Tehran. And also, if you have any other information about the corporate social responsibility and accountants, because I want to have a good job for my dissertation, I welcome from the other researchers from all over the world that had another side of the psychological or other kind studied on the CSR, it is more welcomed, and I will use from it in my dissertation. Moral intelligence is the mental capacity to determine how to apply universal moral principles such as integrity, responsibility, compassion, and forgiveness. These are the dimensions of moral intelligences that we use in our paper. And about the CSR, the corporate social responsibility, you know, the CSR, like the other definitions from the social science, it is fraught with a definitional problem, and which makes it difficult for a uniform platform to assess firms' responsiveness to it, because we are not having just one definition for the corporate social responsibility. There are some definitions, and I will give you some of them. The CSR means different things to different people. This is one from Jonathan. The second, corporate social responsibility, business principle and decision which gives value to the society. Another from Fredericks, in 1960, defines social responsibility as the society's resources, economic and human, in such a way that the whole society derives maximum benefits beyond the corporate entities and their owners. The other from Beckman, 1975. These are from pioneers in the CSR. It says social responsibility to others says that business which are not directly related to economy but rather address its negative externalities, improve employees' condition and social quality of life. Now the methodology and instruments. The project has been done by 2 questionnaires with the reliability and validity amount 286, 232 from male and 54 from female. In Iran, the number of accountants, the female accountants, are not more, and our sampling shows this too. Accountants in Iran private sectors in east and west of Azerbaijan in Iran. And why we choose the Azerbaijan east and west of Azerbaijan? Because I'm originally from East Azerbaijan, and for this I selected this part. For the moral intelligence questionnaire, it has 40 items, psychometric scales. It is developed by Link and Kale in 1995 and has been used in many studies. And for the CSR, we used from a researcher developed one questionnaire that has 10 questions on the CSR related, and it is basically developed from the Carroll corporate social responsibility that has 4 dimensions, and is mainly based on that questionnaire. Now we are on the research questions. We have 1 main and 4 sub-main research questions, hypothesis. The first one, does moral intelligence have effect on CSR among accountants in Iranian private sector in east and west of Azerbaijan? 1.1, does integrity have effects on CSR among accountants in Iranian private sector in east and west of Azerbaijan in Iran? The 1.2 is about the responsiveness of accountants. This is 1.3 about the compassion, and 1.5 is about the forgiveness of accountants on CSR. For analyzing, we use the SPSS softwares to assess global distribution. Descriptive statistics we applied. And the number of participants, I told you, 286 accountants. And polymorphism test was used, and for checking the hypothesis significance, score have been used. Now about the results. We have some tables to show the results. For example, about the married and the singles, 73% are married, about the accountants in East and West of Azerbaijan, and 27 are single percentage. About education, 35% are diploma, 60% are Bachelor of Arts, 5% are Masters. These information are about our samples. Now about the experience, 45% have experience from 1 to 10, 35, 11 to 12, 20, and 20% are amongst the 21 to 30 years experience. These are the experience of our accountants, selected accountants. And about the years of old, 20-80% are young, 60-80 are mid-aged, and others are old. Now, in the table 5, the moral intelligence score test on CSR for analyzing hypotheses. All the hypotheses are significant. The result shows this, and you can see that dependent variable are integrity, responsiveness, compassion, and forgiveness. With the these are calculated with the CSR. The main discussion and implication of this research and study is that we should use some strategies in our organizations, like the accountants, that develop their empathy, consistency, fairness, responsibility, cooperation, and logic of the accountants to have more corporate social responsibility-based accountants. And we desire that our accountants in all the Iran have been as CSR-based accountants. But fortunately, our study shows that the accountants, most of accountants in Iran like to be responsible, socially responsible ones. And also we acknowledge the participants from the East Azerbaijan accountants and other managers for their time and efforts. Okay, thanks for your patience and attention. If you have any questions, I'm interested. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed Reza. Any question to Mohammed Reza? We can take some questions.
Thanks very much for your presentation. Giuseppe Gala, University of Italy. The argument is very relevant, of course, not only in Iran, but all over the world, in the country, everywhere. So there is a great debate, discussions about the corporate social responsibility, and of course on the inner politics, you could tell, not the operators of the bank. My question is, don't you think that all this topic is embedded in a wider concept, which is the economic ethics, business ethics, I should not say business ethical accounting, just business ethics and generally speaking economic ethics. Because this is a way just to enrich, to enlarge, and to make also more important the topic. It's a matter of ethics.
Yes.
That's the problem. There must be a moral individual and honest individual, generous individual, and so on and so forth. And all these inner qualities have a great impact on the performance of the enterprises, both in Iran and everywhere. Thank you.
but I have another presentation today. It's about organizational health and its relationship with the corporate social responsibility. And we have studied ethical issues in that questionnaire for our studies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you, Mohammed.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, finally we come to the end of our session. I would like to say thank you again to the presenters for the informative and interesting presentations and our audience for active participation. My special thanks also go to organization committee members who organized this beautiful organization. Hopefully these presentations will be beneficial for everybody. Thank you for your attention and have a nice day.
Please welcome Professor Ümit Yücel Gençoğlu to give the plaque of the session chair, Professor Turan Korkmaz.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to second International Symposium on Accounting and Finance, second day and second section. First of all, let me thank the organizing committee for such a wonderful and successful symposium. In this section, we have 3 papers to present. The first one, accountancy as a career choice for students from Turkey, Africa, and West Asia. It will be presented by İlhan Nalcı from Doğu Akdeniz University. And second paper titled A Study of Case Method in Business Education and Cases Used in Managerial Accounting Teaching, prepared by Associate Professor Ümran Aslan, Bilecik Vali University, and Associate Professor Zeynep Hatunoğlu from Kahramanmaraş Sütçü İmam University. And the third one, titled Development Process of Education of Professional Accountants in Turkey, a comparative review from 1992 to 2013. Prepared by Professor Mehmet Özbilecikli from Mustafa Kemal University and Associate Professor Mustafa Çam from Mustafa Kemal University. And let me first, I'm going to give it 20 minutes for each paper to present, and could you please ask your question and comments after finishing all presentations are finished. Okay, thank you. And the first paper is going to be presented by Associate Professor İlhan Nalcı from Doğu Akdeniz University. Dear Professor, you have 20 minutes to present your paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much. When we look at the title of this research, of course, it can be understood that this paper is aiming to search into the factors which affect the career choice of students from Turkey, West Asia, and African students Of course, in this case, when we look at the research purpose, of course, the basic question in our minds may be that, what is the contribution of this research into accounting-based studies? When we look at the career choice studies, which study the accounting students' career choice factors, or the students who intend to choose accounting career in the future, we can see that although there is a very great number of research into accounting-based career choice studies, there is a very limited number of research which are including international students. So because of this reason, we can see that this research can contribute to the accounting-based studies in this sense. First of all, it is one of the studies which integrates international students into the research. And second one is that when we look at the career choice studies, which also take into account the accounting students or the students' intention to choose accounting career in the future, we can see that there is no study which is including African students, as far as I know. And the second thing is that there is no study which is combining all of these groups into this kind of career choice studies. So in this regard, we can also understand how this study can contribute to the accounting-based career choice studies. When we look at the research methodology, I want to start with the questionnaire development. When we look at the questionnaire of this study, we can see that this questionnaire is composed of two parts. The first part is including the questions which are demographic ones, such as age, the program of study, and the gender. And in the second part, we try to measure, or I have tried to measure the perception of these students of the career choice factors. But what are these career choice factors? Let me first try to make you understand which factors I have integrated in this research. Of course, when we look at the accounting-based career choice studies, we can see numerous factors, and we can see that numerous kind of questions have been asked in these researches. However, when we look at the literature review, we can see that in the accounting-based career choice studies, which integrate international students, basically Paulino and Estes, 12 career choice factors have been integrated in these studies. And when you look at, for example, one of the studies which was done by Aoyong and Sons in 1997, which is one of the rare studies in the accounting-based career choice studies, which is integrating international students, we can see that Aoyong and Sons has classified these Paulino and Estes 12 career choice factors into 3 groups that we are going to see in the coming slides. And parallel to this literature review, I have also classified these 12 career choice factors in this kind of grouping. And when you look at this research, you can see that Aoyong and Sons stated that this kind of tripartite grouping, which means that we classify these 12 career choice factors into three different groups, can enable us to better make such kind of analysis for cultural studies, especially for integrating international students. Because of this reason, the selection of the career choice factors was very important in this research. Of course, the measures that we have used, or I have used in this research, is that, of course, I talked about 12 career choice factors, which are the parental influence, teachers' influence, peers' influence, and the other one, which is classified under significant others entity. The others are years of formal education required, earning potential, and the others, as we can see, which are classified as materials entity, and the last one is the beliefs. Of course, which is including job satisfaction and the others, aptitude for the subject and previous work experience. This kind of tripartite grouping of Alelo and Estes 12 career choice factors can also be seen in the previous accounting-based career choice studies. Because of this reason, in order to be consistent with the previous career choice studies, we have decided to choose this kind of tripartite grouping. When we look at the data collection for this research, of course, in this research, second-year students who are taking introductory accounting course, as well as upper-level students who are taking upper-level accounting courses, such as financial statement analysis and cost accounting or international accounting courses have been chosen. Of course, there are some reasons why I have integrated both of the groups in this research. One of the reasons is that when you look at the previous accounting-based studies, you can see that there are some limitations in this research, and they are saying that it may not be good to choose first-year students because students' minds can change in the future when they come to upper-level classes. And some of the studies are saying that no, first-year students should be chosen because first-year or second-year students start to shape their minds and decisions when they start to take introductory accounting courses. But when you look at some of the researches, you can see that they are saying that it is better to choose students from upper-level classes because in the upper-level classes, their minds can really shape and they know what to choose. So, in order to overcome all of these disadvantages from both sides, I have integrated both types of students in this study. And these students are studying in one of the universities in North Cyprus, which is catering for international students as well as the Turkish students. And of course, these students are coming from around 60 or 70 different countries, such as Nigeria, Iran, Russia, Ukraine, United States as well, and some other countries. But in this research, I have also obtained a kind of help from one of the professors that I know in Turkey, and the survey was also distributed in one of the universities in Turkey, which are taking introductory accounting courses as well as upper-level accounting courses. Because of this reason, when we look at the sample, for the purpose of this current research, I have classified the samples as the students from Turkey. But when you look at the students from Turkey, these students include Turkish students as well as Turkish Cypriot students, all of them. And I have classified the students from Africa, which are Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, and Cameroon. Of course, there are some other students which have participated in this survey. However, I was not able to integrate them because their number was very limited. For example, we had some other students from other African countries, such as Pakistan. However, I couldn't integrate them into study because their number was very limited. Because of this reason, they were excluded from this study. And when you look at West Asia, I have included the students from Azerbaijan and Iran, which are studying in this university in Northern Cyprus. Of course, as a result of this research selection and the questionnaire development, which was tried to be understood within the context of the previous accounting-based career choice studies, when we look at the hypothesis as a result, I have developed 3 null hypotheses. Of course, the reason why I have developed the hypothesis in the null form is that in the accounting-based career choice studies, we can find mixed results regarding the impact of these factors on students' career choice of accountancy. So some of these studies have found that these factors are having positive impact on the accounting students or students' choice of accounting career. And some of them are saying that these factors are not finding any impact on the career choice factors of business students into accountancy. Of course, I'm sorry, I need to mention one more thing here. Of course, in this research, I haven't classified the students as accounting students and the others who are studying in the accounting departments and the others. I have classified the students as accounting and non-accounting students according to whether or not they have an intention to choose accounting career in the future. And this is also parallel to the accounting-based research. This is also in conjunction with the accounting-based theories. So when we look at the null hypothesis, all of the null hypotheses are saying the same thing. In the first one, I have tested this hypothesis in null form. The career choice factors clustered under materials entity do not influence the intention of students from Turkey, Africa, and West Asia in relation to choosing accounting as a career. So, second hypothesis is measuring the beliefs entity, and the third one is measuring the significant others entity. When we look at the research methodology after specifying the hypothesis, let's try to understand what type of methods I have applied in order to test this hypothesis. First of all, in order to test the hypothesis, I have developed a statistics using SPSS in order to be able to identify whether the degree of importance placed on these factors by accounting students is different from the ones from the non-accounting students. Of course, in addition to the t-test analysis, in order to support the t-test statistics, I have also integrated discriminant analysis at the multivariate level in order to understand the correlation of these students with respect to students' career choice factors of accountancy. So, let's try to see then the results. First of all, in the results, I want to talk about the descriptive information. Of course, I want to focus on the significant ones. When we look at the age, we can see that the majority part of students are from ages 20 and 25 years in this group. Majority part of students are male students, which is 58% of the total sample when we see, and the remaining 42% is composed of the female students. When we look at the data, we can see that majority part of students are from Turkish students, and minority is from West Asia, which includes 52 students. According to their intention to choose accounting as a career in the future, we can see that 51.9% of the students has stressed that they don't want to do accounting career in the future, they don't have such an intention. And the remaining 48% has stated that they may have an intention to choose accounting career in the future. And we can see that majority part of the students study in the Department of Business Administration. But we have also included other students as well who are studying banking and finance, for example, international trade and business, management information systems, and human resources management. Because these students are also taking introductory accounting courses, and they may intend to choose accounting career in the future. After this demographic information, let's try to look at t-test results. When we look at the t-test results, I want to start from the Turkish students. When we look at the Turkish students, we can see that in the materials entity, accounting students place significantly more importance on the earning potential, cost of education, high status of jobs, and good job opportunities. So when we look at the materials factors from the perspective of the Turkish students, we can see that Turkish students are placing more importance. Accounting students they are placing more importance on these factors. When we look at the beliefs, just previous work experience is the one which is significant at 10% level, and in the significant other factors, the parental influence and teachers' influence are found to be important factors for the Turkish accounting students in choosing accounting career in the future. Of course, in the coming slides, I will try to make you understand what type of implications we can derive from these results. When we look at the African students, we can see that for the African students, years of formal education required is important for accounting students, as well as high status of jobs. We can say that only these two factors were found to influence the decisions of African accounting students in choosing accounting as a career in the future. When we look at the West Asian students, we can see that only three factors. None of the materials, which is very interesting, none of the materials factors have been found. Aptitude for the subject. Of course, I will discuss the meaning of it in the coming slides, but aptitude for the subject was found to be significant, which means that accounting students place significantly more importance on these factors than the non-accounting students. And when we look at the significant others, like Turkish students, parental influence and teachers' influence also are found to be important factors. So, of course, I will discuss the results, but these are the test ones. Of course, when you look at the discriminant analysis, which tries to understand which factors really discriminate between these two groups, because the basic important feature of discriminant analysis is that it uses this kind of categorical data, unlike the multiple regression analysis, and tries to identify which factor is discriminating between two groups. Okay, what are the groups here? Accounting students and non-accounting students, such as like this, or maybe the students who are smoking or students who are not smoking, something like that. So this kind of categorical interval analysis is very useful for discriminant analysis. When we look at the discriminant analysis, as I'm going to identify within a couple of minutes, we can see that discriminant analysis result is in line with t-test findings. Of course, here, when you look at the discriminant analysis, I want to discuss the results for three groups separately. But first of all, I want to make very brief explanations of the meanings of these things. For example, we see standardized discriminant function coefficient, structure coefficient, and discriminant ratio coefficient. Let me briefly explain in a very short period of time what this means. When we look at this, the standardized coefficients, these are something like beta weights in regression analysis. So it shows importance of this factor. For example, this weights, as we see here, shows whether these factors are important or not for the students in choosing accounting career. This structure coefficient is something like factor loadings. So, because of this reason, these coefficients are sometimes called discriminant loadings. When we look at these loadings, as a rule of thumb, if it is above 3.5, it says that this factor really discriminates between these two groups. However, none of these factors, none of them can tell us the discriminatory power of each variable. Because of this reason, we use discriminant ratio coefficient. This one is very important because it really tells us the discriminating power of each factor between two groups. For example, when we look at these stars tells us at which level these factors are significant. 1 star represents significance at 10% level, 2 stars represent significance at 5% level, and the last one is representing significance at 1% level. And as we can see, when we look at the materials, we can see that this is 0.46. And this data is obtained when we multiply these two factors. The meaning of this is that the highest discriminating factor for the Turkish students is high status of job in this area. This means that Turkish students really stress very importance on this factor in choosing accounting career. And this 0.46 means that 46% of the total change in the dependent variable can be explained by this factor. This is having the highest discriminating factor for the Turkish students. Of course, others are also having some relationship, as we see in the t-test results, but this is only around 1%, as we see, and this is around 0.05%. And last one is 0.2, something like that. So the highest discriminating factor is the high status of jobs. And for the parental influence, we can see that it is only 10%. And for the last one, for the teachers, it is 40%. When we look at the African students, we can also see that these results are parallel to t-test results. And we can see that for this student, highest discriminating factor is years of formal education required, which is 31%. It says that 31% of the total change in the dependent variable. What is a dependent variable? Intention to choose accounting career can be explained by this factor. This means that the more these students perceive years of formal education required as important, the more likely they are to intend to choose accounting career in the future. This is showing this result.
You have 3 minutes.
Okay. So for the West Asian students, the highest ratio is for aptitude. So aptitude represents 50% of the total change in the intention of the West Asian students. Okay. In these results, when we look at the results, therefore, in a very short time, 2 minutes I'm going to finish. As we see, we have mixed results regarding the importance of these factors on 3 groups. Some of the factors influence Turkish students, some of them do not influence the others. Some of the factors influence African students, some of them do not influence the others. Because of these reasons, all of the hypotheses are partly accepted. So we can say that we partly accept them, not in full, partly, because not all of the factors. And last one, implications for the policymakers. What is the implication of this research? First of all, we can see that the accounting profession should be promoted to Turkish students as having prestige, social status, good earning potential, and enough job opportunities, because Turkish students place significantly more importance on these factors, and these factors are significantly having correlation with accounting career choose. Because of this reason, this could be an effective strategy to attract more students into the accounting programs or into the accounting profession. Given evidence that cost of education is an important issue for Turkish students, the accounting educator could attract more students into the accounting programs by providing scholarship to bright students intending to study accounting, by offering reduction in tuition fees in order to attract more students into the program. Regarding the Turkish students, the results also show that the more these students perceive previous work experience as important, the more likely they intend to choose accounting career. Because of this reason, more internship programs should be regulated, should be revised for these students. And last, the findings suggest that the accounting educators target Turkish and West Asian students' parents and convince them, because these students place significantly more importance on parent ideas. Okay, thank you very much for listening. I'm sorry for
Thank you. The second paper titled study of case method in business education and case used in managerial accounting teaching. It will present Associate Professor Zeynep Hatun. You have 20 minutes.
Our paper title is A Study of Case Method in Business Education and Using Cases in Managerial Accounting Teaching. Aim of this study is to review cases in the book that is widely used in management accounting lectures. And also, we intend to determine the types of cases mostly used in management accounting courses, and also we hope to contribute those who wish to use cases in their management accounting courses. Firstly, the topic of management accounting course at the graduate level are examined and grouped in their own. And then, type of cases which are used in management accounting course were examined. In this research, we used the third edition of Accounting Text and Cases book, which is written by Robert Anthony, David Hawkins, and Kenneth Merchant. This book was examined and analyzed to find out the types of cases. In education system, professors teach subjects to students, but we cannot talk about education without learning and teaching. Teaching is an activity which ensures learning. From this definition, we need to make definition for learning. Learning is a permanent changes in individuals' behaviors as a consequence of imitation or experience. Education, as you see here, is a combination of learning and teaching activities. There are different types of teaching techniques used. Some of them are explaining, discussing, case methods, problem solving, and others. Here our subject is case method, used as a teaching method in management accounting education. Mostly real problems of business life are presented to students through the case method. By case method, it is aimed to discuss and talk about an event, a situation, or problem given as an example. During that time, students are expected to make recommendation and completion under instructor's guidance. There are 6 types of cases. In theory, incident case, background case, education case, situation case, complex case, and decision case. The incident case is a short and focused case that describes a single incident or problem. Students are required to illustrate a concept or method in developing a solution or recommendation. The background case gives information on a given industry or company to students. And students are requested to identify the presented data and explore a specific business issue. The application case allows students to apply a specific concept or technique that has been explained in a traditional lecture. The situation case requires an analysis of the information embodied in the case, and students are asked to describe the significant relationships existing among the various items of data. and students are required to filter and identify the essential issue from superficial ones and to pay attention to possible interdependencies embodied in the case. And decision case asks students to state what they would do in the circumstances described in the case and requires them to formulate an action plan. The scope of management accounting has changed in time. Institute of Management Accountants published a statement in 1931. In this statement, this institution made a description for management accounting. In the definition, the traditional role of management accountants is mentioned as gathering information and controlling this information. And also, in this definition, preparation of financial reports for non-management groups is also mentioned as the duty responsibility of management accountants. Especially in the late 20th century, business environment has changed. Change drivers in business environment can be classified as globalization, development in information technologies, and competition. To respond to these changes, new techniques and methods were developed, such as activity-based costing, activity-based management, total quality management, economic value added, and others. The development of new management accounting techniques changed the scope of management accounting and the role of management accountant. In this time, traditional management accounting was criticized because it is not useful in the new business environment. And then in 2008, Institute of Management Accountants published a new statement and they changed the definition of management accounting. In this new definition, they show the role of management accountant as the partner in management decision making, and also this definition indicates the strategic role of management accountant. For this research, we grouped management accounting objectives as planning and measurement, application and decision making, and control. These objectives shape the content of topics educated at management accounting lectures. As you see on this table, we group the topics in management accounting depending on the way they serve management accounting purposes, objectives. For example, cost volume profit analysis is a method both used in planning and measurement and application and decision making objectives. Cases at the back of each chapter of the book we used in our research. After 14th lecture were analyzed in terms of the type of cases and the management accounting objectives. As you see on the table, we prepare a table like this for each chapter, and we show on the vertical side the purposes of management accounting, and on the vertical side the types of cases, and then we match these. We read all the cases and decide which kind of cases is this, and then to which objectives of management accounting it serves. And as a result, in total, 30 cases of 13th edition of casebook are analyzed. In analysis, types of cases which mostly used in management accounting education and which serves to different management accounting goals are determined. On this table, you can see the mostly used case methods in management accounting lectures. Respectively, they are situation case, decision case, background case, and application case, incident case, and then the complex case. Mostly, situation case is used at management accounting case books. And also, number of cases used in management accounting purposes grouped depending on the purposes of management accounting classification. As you see, control and application decision-making purposes case studies are 21, and case methods used to serve the planning and measurement objectives of management accounting is 10. We have some limitations in this study. We use only one book to review case studies. And also, there can be some shortcomings due to the interpretation of cases by authors. Because if another person reads the same case, and this person may say this is not a decision case, it can be a situation case. This can be our shortcomings. The contribution of the study can be being guide to young academicians who want to use cases in accounting lectures. And also it can be a starting point for future studies about case studies in accounting education. We have recommendations for further research. In the further research, comparison of more than 2 case books may be done. And as a result, it is found that to solve a case, other disciplines such as economics, marketing, ethics, and other disciplines should be considered. Case methods make it possible for students to solve real-life problems and to see the whole forest instead of a tree. Because to solve a cases, students should know economics, marketing, and maybe ethics, and maybe another different discipline. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And the third paper titled is The Development Process of Education of Professional Accountants in Turkey, a comparative review from 1992 to 2013. It's going to be presented by Associate Professor Mustafa Can. You have 20 minutes.
Thank you. The subject of our topic is the development process of education of professional accountants in Turkey, a comparative review from 1992 to 2013. The aim of the study is accountancy in Turkey, which has study. Today, professional accountants are expected to serve the needs not only of investors and creditors, but also the information needs of many other users of financial and non-financial information. To enable adaptations to constant change depends on a working of set of professional knowledge, professional skills, and professional values, ethics, and attitudes. Accountancy in Turkey, which has a history of 25 years, has changed and progressed in terms of international standards, laws, regulations, applications, use of technology, etc. The present study, focusing on the historical development process of education of the accounting professional in Turkey, has two main aims. The first aim is to investigate and analyze to what extent education levels of professional accountants in Turkey have changed from 1992 to 2013. The second aim is to investigate the current curricula of TESMAN, the Center of Education and Training of Professional Accountants, and to compare them to the general framework of international education standards for professional accountants issued by the International Federations of Accountants. The study also investigates a new group of professional accountants in conducting external auditing of non-listed companies, which is expected to make contributions to meeting the stakeholders' need for institutionalizations and transparency commercial life in Turkey. At the beginning of this 25-year period, 1992-1994, it is seen that the number of professionals in Turkey was 20,277 independent accounts, 12,374 certificate public accounts, and 365 sporting certificate public accounts. The number of professionals has increased in important degrees throughout the years, and according to the updated data, the number of the independent accountants have increased to 28,665, certificated public accounts to 47,736, and sworn in certificated public accounts is 3,885 of the end of the 2009. While the total number of the professionals was 7,968 in 1992 and it became 80,268 in 2009. So, the number of the professionals has increased tenfold since 1992 over the period of 25 years. The number of professionals, international standards, laws, regulations, uses of technology have changed and developed in the accountancy profession. The changes in education levels of operations, 1992-2030. In order to see the quantitative change regarding the professionals through the years, in regards of the education levels, which is actually the qualitative, we should look at how the professional distributions in total of the professionals' education level tends to show in the years. The development process of the educational status is illustrated in the table prepared for sworn in case independent accounts and certificated public accounts separately. When we look at the table, the percentage of the sworn in certificate public accounts is not an important increase, but the number of the certificated sworn in certificate public account is increasing. Both undergraduate and postgraduate, the percentage is not an important increase, but the number is increasing. The change in education level in sworn in certificated public accounts, as shown in table 1, the number of the sworn in case has reached 4,276 from 2,400 since the beginning of the 19th up to date. So it has increased 56.12%. But when we look at the The change in education level of certificated public accounts. The number of the certificated public account has reached 76,900 from 12,374 since the beginning of the 90s, which means it increased 6.6 times more in the 25-year period. The current number of the independent accounts is 11,452. So, total number of the professional accounts is now 88,360. It is seen the certificated public accounts consist of 98% undergraduate and 2% postgraduate professionals in the first years, the period of 1992 to 1994. In recent years, these rates have become 95% undergraduate and 5% postgraduate. The proportion is increasing 3%. International education standards and the corresponding regulations in Turkey. International Education Standard 1. Entirely requirements to a program of professional accounting education. International Education Standard 2. Content of professional accounting education program. 3. Professional skills. Intellectual skills, technical and functional skills, personal skills, interpersonal and communication skills, organizational and business management skills. 4. Professional value, ethics and values. 5. Practical experience required. 4. Professional value, ethics and values regards. The public interest and sensitivity to social responsibilities. B. Continued improvement and lifelong learning. C. Liability responsibility. Kindness, courtesy and respect. D. Uploading laws and regulations. We determine to what extent the regulations and curricula of education program of TESMET theory is in accordance with the accounting education standards in order to make suggestions regarding how to progress educational activities in Turkey as follows. 1. In order to comply with the international accounting standard, accountancy should be performed by individuals to graduate from faculties whose curricula cover accounting and management-related courses. 2. In order to comply with International Accounting Standard 2 and International Accounting Standard 4, some courses such as information technology and ethics should be proficient in the education program of TESMET. 3. In order to comply with International Accounting Standard 3, some courses devoted to the mix of skills such as intellectual, technical, personal, interpersonal, and organizational should be added to the education program of TESMET. 4. In order to comply with International Accounting Standard 5, practical experience is given more importance during the training period. Employers should be equipped with knowledge enabling them to be conscious of their responsibilities during the training period. Additionally, the training environment should be controlled more severely by the officials of the chambers. Otherwise, the training environment will not match the international accounting standard. 5. Professional abilities and competence of the candidates should be assessed as expressed in year 6. Thus, it can be possible that exams can assess to what extent candidates A. can extract from various subjects the knowledge required to solve many-sided or complex problems. B. can solve a particular problem by distinguishing the relevant information from the relevant in a given body of data. C. can, in multi-problem situations, identify the problems and rank them in order in which they need to be addressed. D. appreciate that there can be alternative solutions and understand the rule of the judgment dealing with them. E. can integrate diverse areas of knowledge and skills. F. can communicate effectively with users Uluslararası recommendations in continuous and project operation, G, can identify ethical dilemmas. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you. And now we have 30 minutes more to ask any question or give a comments for this paper. And is there any question or comments? Okay. Dear colleague, could you please introduce yourself and to mention to whom you are asking for your question? Okay.
Thank you very much for the three interesting presentations. My name is Yoshi Jinai, Tokyo Keizai University from Japan. For the first presentation, accountancy as a career choice. I have a question. So, in the table of the elements of the, factors, there is in your table aptitude for subject matter. At the beginning, I didn't understand it because of my poor English. So I just checked the dictionary, aptitude for subject matter. And so you didn't mention at all the aptitude for subject matter in your conclusion or implication. Your four implications are really nice for me. It would be of value for, as you mentioned, for policymaker in terms of the accounting profession. But to my personal experience, I have been, I wanted to be the best accounting teacher in Japan. So I have been so proud of my teaching method, philosophy, and practice. So I think that I have encouraged myself to promote students' aptitude for subject matter, aptitude for accounting as learning discipline. But as in your result of your research, the aptitude for subject matter is out of scope because of the data, not your understanding, but it's based on your data you collected. So, personally, what do you mention about the location of the accounting profession, including accounting professors? How do you say the location of the aptitude for students' aptitude for subject matter accounting?
Okay. First of all, it was included in my presentation, however, I couldn't find time to present. In the accounting-based career choice studies, aptitude means skills and background, especially in mathematics. This is because when we look at the previous literature review, it shows that, especially when the students think that they don't have skills and backgrounds in mathematics, they will not be able to specialize in accounting. Just because of this reason, what can I say about this implication for the policymakers is that the policymakers, according to the findings of my research, which was revealing that aptitude was an important factor for the West Asian students. Of course, this important finding should tell the policymakers, especially the accounting professions, to promote accounting profession in a way that the student will not need that much complicated mathematics, because otherwise, if the students will think that accounting profession will have such complicated mathematical skills, in this case, they will refrain from choosing accounting as a career. However, if we are not going to promote them accounting like this. If you promote accounting in a way that accounting, of course, requires some mathematical skills, but it is not that much complicated mathematics. In this case, maybe they will be more encouraged to choose accounting as a career. I think this can be a kind of implication or suggestion based on the result of this finding. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Giuseppe Gala, University of Parma, Italy. My question is just towards the first presentation, but at the same time is related also to the third one, because the arguments are tightly connected, you know. And as for mathematics, just I have to reply to a question to Professor Ginari here. You have to be careful. You have to be careful in speaking about mathematics and accept or not mathematics in our curriculum. Because the argument is here the attraction of students. Your paper dealt with attraction from Turkey, East Asia, Africa, to accounting profession and so on. But I should say we can generalize, you know, this topic. This is a problem coming to any country, all over the world, you know. So there is a kind of competition, because we must attract students to accounting, you know, instead of the finance, organization, marketing, and so on. But the competition is also towards other disciplines, like engineering, medicine, sciences, and so on and so on. And we want a lot of students coming to economics and particularly to accounting. So the question is a question also of attraction. The most brilliant minds, the best students, because best students will give a lot to our discipline. Well, if we want to attract the most brilliant minds, the best students, we cannot limit in our curriculum to teach the technicalities of accounting, management accounting, and so on. We must extend our curriculum to other subjects, logic, philosophy, ethics, as you said here, but also mathematics, because are disciplines with high rigor, you know, high foundation. And this is the way, in my opinion, to attract the most brilliant mind. Otherwise, the most brilliant mind goes in other curriculum, in other, you know, so we have to be careful and just formulate our curriculum. But you have said also in the third relation that we must enlarge the subject area, and so on and so forth.
Of course, in this case, what I have stressed previously is that this kind of policy makers should intend to the students who don't think that they have enough mathematical backgrounds. Of course, everybody knows that accounting requires some mathematics. So, in any case, the students, I think, of course, this is what I think, the students who have good mathematical backgrounds can choose accounting as a career, even though they know that it doesn't require such a complicated mathematics. So, the implication of my research is basically for the students who think that accounting requires too much mathematics and they don't have enough background in mathematics, and this may prevent them from choosing accounting as a career in the future. Of course, the policy makers, accounting educators, should be very careful when preparing their curriculum or when promoting. So I agree with you totally. I agree with what you said. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, please.
I think it is not only a problem with mathematics. I guess if the program involves something like tax applications, accounting and tax applications, or meaning something more in mathematics or other hard courses, students do not apply for your program. But if your name covers, let's say, computerized accounting or something like this, I'm talking for the vocational schools specifically, but we can make a parallel regime for the 4-year courses too. So the name of the program is also important, and the curricula is also important, the content of the courses is also important. I think course makers or the school managers or university managers, whatever you say, they have to make policies to market the program to the prospective students, applicants. So it's not only mathematics, but also some other hard courses are also pushing the student back. Let's say tax. Tax is related to regulations. We have to be fond of regulations because we have to boundary within those regulations, and students are paying also from tax, not only mathematics. So maybe the terminology may cover or maybe expand it this way.
Of course, what you said can be a very good suggestion for the future research. So the future researchers may investigate the application of the tax, the impact of this kind of factors on students' choice. In fact, I haven't seen such a factor in accounting-based theories, but it can be a very good future research. I totally agree with you.
We are now doing it, that's why I'm saying that, because we had both daily courses and night courses, and students are decreasing each year, just because our program's name includes accounting and tax applications. Formerly it was computerized accounting, and we were having always full students both for the day and night programs, so please observe it.
So it is the beyond of the scope of my research, so it can be a very good suggestion for the future research. Thank you.
Any more questions? Suggestion?
Thank you again. I'm Yoshi Jinai from Tokyo Keizai University, Japan. I'd like to suggest to the second presentation paper, a study of case method in business education, cases used in the management accounting teaching. To me, it seems that in the final stage of the presentation, at the very final stage, I found very important key issues for the usage of the case studies in management accounting education. This is the fact that you mentioned the knowledge or information knowledge in other disciplines is required to solve a case study. I think I agree with your suggestion. I think it's very important for the accounting education to make students stand at such a standpoint where you require some knowledge or some intellectual power other than beyond the accounting. So you said economics or some marketing or some information knowledge. So I think this could be, in the future, in your group, this could be a future further subject of the further development of the significance of case study teaching method in not only in management accounting but also accounting in general. I think it's a very interesting suggestion at the final stage of your presentation.
Thank you so much.
Again, one question to the case method, We have different approaches in education. One is the case method in teaching, You examined a very famous book by Anthony and other co-authors, about case studies. they publish so many books during the lifetime. Okay. And this is a typical method used by Harvard University in Boston. Typical method used in that university. And certainly the case method is a good way of teaching. But the problem in my question is, do you think that is sufficient, this kind of teaching, that it is only with case method, or is necessary in the same time to use other approach, a complementary approach to case methods? This is my question.
You know, during teaching, we use different techniques. I also mentioned these different techniques. For example, discussing is another teaching method. Firstly, we should give information about subjects to students in the first levels of accounting education, and we should use case methods at the end of the accounting education, and especially I think it should be used in MBA education, because in MBA education and at the end of the accounting education, undergraduate students learn all the subjects of accounting and other disciplines, for example, economics, and then they can make their suggestions about the problem shown in the case studies, and they can get benefit from this teaching method.
But the problem, is, in my opinion, you have to use the case method in a complementary way with other methods, like traditional presentation and so on and so forth. Because if you limit the teaching to the case method, you deal only with specific cases, So the case refers to a specific entity, specific enterprises. But in the real world, we have one enterprise is never equal, similar to another one, because all enterprises are different. So we need to teach to our students some general framework only, not only case method. Otherwise, maybe they could be in difficulty in practice, in the professional life, because they learn something to solve the problem of one enterprise, but the other enterprise will be quite different. So they will be in difficulty in solving the other problem. So it's a matter of integration of different way of teaching. So more than the case method, I should say the case in the system. So you have to teach case method, but also the general system where each case is implemented. This is my modest opinion. Okay?
Thank you so much for your contribution.
Any more questions, please?
I'm Yoshiji from Tokyo, Japan. I'm very interested in the development of professional accounting education in Turkey, so third paper. I'm very curious to know the component and constructing elements, fields of accounting professionals education. So in the paper, I have found that important component fields are, intellectual ability or professional skills, communication abilities, and finally, not the final one, but ethics, ethical behavior, ethics. So my point, I'm curious to know, in your understanding, where ethics or ethical behavior of the professional accounting professionals is located in the educational field of professional education in all professional accountants in Turkey. Ethics and professional education. it's very interesting for me. So.
Thank you.
This one. Actually, all components included all education process is realized before certification. It's said in the presentation, as you hear, there's a institution or center for training and education. And this center organizes an education program to the candidates, not only professionals. Professionals, candidates of professionals. So ethics education actually was not given before 27 March this year, because this time is very important for our profession, and this time a law passed for ethic education for professions. This is a bit mandatory. And all professions, not candidates, all professions will be to take on this ethics education, and they will take a certification to showing they have an ethics education. Okay. This is a kind of agreement. We take this education and we promise, right, and we will obey the ethics rules in all professional activities. But in the presentation, ethics, values, and behaviors is that is a component of education, but before profession. Okay. It was a missing point in our education process in Turkey, but this year, in March, I want to believe it's completed as a whole. Can I reply?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Anyone? You? Okay, please.
Appreciating from the presenters. And my question is about the third presenters. I'm Muhammed Rızan from Uluslararası University from Iran. My question is that what strategy you use for teaching ethics for undergraduate students and postgraduate students that are not professional accountant and they want to be accountant in the future? What is your strategy, best strategy to use ethical issues for your accountant students?
Use this one.
I also conducting a research study nowadays, and topic is ethics education in universities, at universities. And I found about 50% of Turkish universities have an ethics related course. But it should be criticized, because only one ethics related course, of course, is not enough for ethics education. Actually, as all we can accept,
ethics education should start in the family, not in university. Family, primary school, secondary school, high school, university, and doing the profession. So maybe it's a governmental issue, not an organization. It's a whole problem, maybe for all countries. If an individual has an ethics values, ethics consciousness, it's very important, awareness, then if it is supported in the education level, primary, secondary, high school level, and then at the university education level, it is not only related to accounting or business, it is about all professions, medicine, all professions. So I think every faculty, each faculty about any area should have an ethics related course. But lifelong learning is said, not only before or after. This is all time with seminars. But it's not a criteria for passing an exam. Maybe exam doesn't exist because it's not a barrier. It is like a learning language to conduct your profession honestly. So ethics is very different education component. But in Turkey case, yes, there is ethics related courses, but I don't believe it is given in real sense. Because it's just a course for students, and students try to pass.
So it's a popular problem, not just related to the Turkish problem. It is a general problem. Yeah, it's general, yes. Not specialized in Turkey, and it is general, yes, in other countries too.
I think it is a change different from people to people, especially individual. Thank you.
Case studies are very important for giving ethics-related courses because this is problem solving and getting consciousness of the ethics issue in an event, in a case. If you don't realize the ethics problem in any case, you don't understand the ethics value or ethics problem. So for this, to understand this, you have to know the values and attitudes for any profession.
Okay, thank you. Kendisi doğru. Küçük lisans köprüsü historical lifestyle. Okay, I would like to thank our presenter for their good presentation. I also thank the organizing committee for such a wonderful symposium. And finally, I would thank all of you for your attention. Thank you very much.